her thing about the I regret voting for Trump, watch this. You got to watch 1 second of this. Because watch where she goes with this, okay?
I regret my vote for Donald Trump, and here's why.
You ready to see some of the dumbest shit you've ever seen? Okay, we got to talk about this because this is something that we see really common. This is not an isolated incident. This is common with the whole family values, the whole like Republican morality. They are talking about abortion. Okay, obviously the voting blue to kill your kids. She's got a little Planned Parenthood dig up here. But what I want to talk about is this on a conceptual level, okay? Because she says she voted red to protect her future kids. Okay, let's just look at that. First, the first part. She voted red to protect her future kids. And yeah, I know using Soundgarden was like really questionable because it's like she's not paying attention to the art she's consuming, but whatever, right? Whatever. She's not very smart. But as you see, people are just shredding her in the comments. But let's just unpack that for a minute, though. I voted red. Okay, I got to stop her moving. Seeing her moving in the corner of my eyes is killing me. But the voting red to protect her future kids. Okay, let's just get a good look at her face here. Hold on. So if we unpack that, she voted red to protect her future kids. How does she believe voting red is protecting her future kids? Because on the one hand, depending on where she lives, her kid or her could like die during childbirth. And there's a really good chance that she wouldn't get any health care. Or maybe her kid would survive, but she would die. Okay, so that's number one, is just the act of giving birth. Now, also depending on where she lives, she may not have access to birth control or sonogram after she gets pregnant, or even, pregnancy health care, right? Especially if she lives in a white rural area. You know what I mean? Like, there's no support of pregnant women that happen from the Republican Party. The abortion laws make it very risky for women to give birth, okay? There is no paid family leave. They're not going to support her to have a kid and be home with the kid. There's no guarantee of health care or school lunches for her kids. Once she has that kid, and if she's struggling, they're going to make it really hard for her to get any help as a pregnant woman. And in the process, they're going to kind of demean her and the kid, right? But no school lunches, no guarantee of like decent education. And in fact, the Republicans are gutting the Department of Education. So if her kid, had their civil rights abused at school, they were discriminated against, or they were accosted, there's a real good chance that nobody from the federal government would step in to protect her child. That's also from the Republican Party. I mean, we can go on forever. When her kid is huddled under a desk during a school shooting, she's been voting for Republicans her whole life. So there's no red flag laws. There's going to be no gun laws. There's going to be active shooter drills. No, that's really good. That is like a genius way to protect your kid, to make sure that there's open carry and there's guns. When your kid goes to the fucking playground, there's like 5 guys walking around with assault rifles strapped over their shoulders. Yeah, that seems like a really healthy place for your kid. Not only that, when your kid gets to college, 10,000 women report sexual assaults every year in college. Nobody addresses that. And in fact, the Republican Party voted for a rapist. She says she wants to protect her future kids, but she voted for a rapist who's got several other rapists in his fucking cabinet. They helped Andrew Tate, the rapist and human trafficker. They helped him get out of Romania and brought him to America. Oh, we love the rapists and human traffickers. Dude, how? How does she square that? how is that a vote for her future kid, right? Who then beat up someone? Yes. Thank you. I forgot about that. Yes, when he was here, he was choking and beating up his fucking girlfriend. Oh, yeah, lest we forget. And Trump has a long history of being aggressive and demeaning towards women. Now, have we forgotten anything? I feel like I covered it all. Oh, yeah, well, so they stripped away DEI programs, so it's going to be much harder for her daughter to get a job interview. And depending on if she's in a religion, she may grow up with her kid learning that you're just a rib, honey. Okay, you're just a rib. You just have to support your man. Smile. Smile more. Dude, that is crazy. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, though. You ready? The second half of her comment, when she says, you voted blue to kill yours. Now, the implication by her, and this is an implication that comes from a lot of these Republican women, these sort of like birther vessel, anti-abortion, whatever. They call themselves pro-life, but they're actually pro-birth because they're not pro-life because they don't take care of the life after the birth. And they don't believe in equity for the life after the birth. They're just pro-birth. But the pro-birth people imply that it's like Democratic women are out there just having a whole bunch of abortions. But this is where it gets really interesting, because when you look at the statistics, when you look at the stats on abortion, it's fairly consistent, the number of women that have abortions. If you look at it, independents, women who identify as independent actually are slightly a higher tick. But in many polls, I found a lot of consistent information here. The Republicans, 12% of women say they've had an abortion, and 14% of Democrats have had an abortion. So the reality is Republican women and Democrat women are actually getting abortions at nearly the identical rate. These are not like widespread willy-nilly things. I mean, I know they create that narrative. They create that narrative that they're using it as birth control. That's how they weaponize. Like, you got to support this because the Democrats are out of control. But the fact of the matter is that all political ideology, the same percentage of women are basically having abortions. It is not widespread. Democratic women aren't there having a whole bunch of abortions. The only thing that Democratic women are doing is they're wanting to guarantee that this small percentage of women that have to do this can do it safely, can do it with enough support to be healthy afterwards, and they can do it without being shamed because they're already making a really, really difficult decision. Now, in addition to this, the other thing they like to claim about the abortion is they like to talk about the very few late stage, okay? Because there are some late stage. And there's not many, but there might be like, 1,000 a year or something, the late stage that happen way deep into the pregnancy. But those are always happening when the woman's health is at risk, okay? They're happening when either the baby is already gone, okay, or already non-viable, and they're just making sure the woman doesn't carry a dead fetus to term, or it's when the woman's health is at risk, right? Nobody does abortion to kill their kids, right? Yeah, exactly. Nobody's carrying a kid for 7 months and is like, oh, I just don't want to have it now. Like, no, they're fucking attached. The women that have like 8-month abortions because of complications, they're fucking sad. They're fucking heartbroken. Even the women I've known who had them, like I knew a woman who was in an abusive relationship and the abuser kept trying to get her pregnant. He would like cut condoms. He would fuck around with her birth control pills. He was doing all kinds of shit trying to get her pregnant so she would be tied to him. And she was having trouble getting out of the relationship. And she got an abortion when he finally got her pregnant. And it was heartbreaking for her to do that. But she knew she had to. And because she couldn't get out of the relationship yet. And eventually she got out. But like, dude, the way that they're so flippant in their judgment. You know, the people who get them, and that it's just Democrats and you guys are just sort of baby killers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when you look at it, look at her facial expression. She's so smug. She's like so smug. I mean, it reminds me of the Emily Saves America, right? Where they're smug and they're filled with all this judgment. You know, she's some like well put together, like very monetarily privileged white girl. And, you know, she's subscribed herself to whatever religious bullshit she's been indoctrinated with. But the fact that she posts this just unironically, so like blatantly clueless and just off the hook, like she is so far out there. It's really interesting. And this is a really popular Republican opinion. And a lot of it hammers on Planned Parenthood. And I will say this, guys, I have been to Planned Parenthood so many times over the course of my life. And I have never been there for a woman having an abortion. And this is crazy because when you talk to right-wingers, they like to talk about Planned Parenthood. And for them, it is just abortion. But if you're poor, if you don't have money, Planned Parenthood is a legitimate woman's clinic. And even for a guy, I got STD screenings there. I got access to birth control there. Girlfriends I was with got access to birth control there. They got healthcare, pap smears. Like, it's crazy how much medical healthcare is done in Planned Parenthood. These women are like insane about this shit. They're so filled with judgment. They're so blinded by their own bias that they carry that they're not even aware of what Planned Parenthood really does, because she's never been low income enough, certainly, to have to step in one. So it's just this thing to her. It's just this thing associated with her negative judgment about Democrats, you know? But the reality is, in some rural areas, especially where, you know, rural hospitals have shut down, a lot of women, this is the only place to get reliable women's health care. And closing and defunding Planned Parenthood would have such a tragic effect on women, like nationwide. It's not even funny. And of course, most of that is going to be felt in the lower income range. But the fact that this is so tone deaf is really extraordinary. I saw this and I'm like, oh my God. It's like, now, I don't know if she actually like believes this. I'm assuming she does. You know, I'm assuming she believes this and is not just rage baiting it, because if you look at her page is just a cornucopia of liberal tropes that she does. Everything's a trope, but it's pretty tone deaf. And this one in particular, where she's like, oh, I regret voting for Trump. Just kidding. Right? Her page is so, it's literally, it's the exact same shit as that Emily Wilson. Like her thing about the I regret voting for Trump. Watch this. You got to watch 1 second of this, because watch where she goes with this, okay?
I regret my vote for Donald Trump, and here's why. I was told that I would not be allowed to drive anymore, and I was looking forward to being a passenger princess, but as you can see, I'm sitting in my car right now because if I want to run errands,
I was told I would not be able to drive anymore. And I'm like, really? What is that about? Is that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think she was trying to be funny, like losing rights. Oh, I'm not going to be able to drive. Yeah, you know, that's what I thought was so crazy. I think she was trying to be funny, but it's like, God damn, dude, these right wingers are not funny. What is up, guys? Thank you so much for watching. You like the video, you want to support independent resistance media, you know what to do. Drop that sub, hit the like button, and please share it. And we do love our members, so if you want to become a member, it's another really great way to support. Thanks again for everything, guys. I'll see you next time. Let's go.